Hello, in this lesson we're going to take our little TV a step further and not have it just floating into space and not knowing if it is the size of a Barbie TV or if it's like a massive, incredible 80-inch TV. So what we're going to do is first grab a size reference, but actually really before what we're going to do is just review. We created this using only the extrude and going into right-click face mode by selecting different parts and making sure that we are only hitting extrude once at a time, and if we don't want to use that extrude, then we hit the Z, which is undo. Okay, so first let's import a character so that we can compare the size. We're just going to go import. I'm just going to import our little character here. We see he's ginormous. We're just going to expand that. We see it's like the size of an iPad, so we're going to blow that up a bit. Make it. He's a big guy. He wants to have a nice big TV. We'll ignore the fact that he's standing behind it right now, but that's pretty much the size that we want for that one. Maybe a little bigger. Boom, right there. And now I'm just going to temporarily move that out of the way so I can make another model. And I'm going to create, holding down spacebar, create Polygon Cube, or I could just go right here, either one. And we're going to make a table. So I'm taking this table once again and I'm just scaling it. The reason I have this guy here is because when I grab stuff and I put it next to him, I can actually see how big that table would be. And remember, if I'm getting lost, how do I get back to that and focus on that object? I just tap the F key, and that allows me to focus on whatever is selected. So we'll make this table a little bit more worthy. That looks okay. Make it a little bit thicker. There. And I'm going to keep this one simple once again since we're just starting to learn out, and then we'll start to worry about little details later. But we use the extrude for the TV, and this time we're going to use the extrude, but we're also going to do things a little differently. So first, let's add just a little more detail to this table, or the top of this table, before we make the legs. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my face, grab that top face, and I'm going to extrude it. This time I'm going to adjust the thickness, and you can see I've just added that extra edge and it's lifting up. And then I'm going to adjust the offset and bring that in a bit. And that's so that we don't have this edge that looks like it could cut somebody. Now, if I do want to make it a little bit rounder, then what I might do is where it says divisions, let's click on the name there, rotate it, and bring it to 2, and I add an extra division. So now there's 2 divisions. And here's a little trick. I'm going to right click and hold, go to edge mode. You can see that's not bad. It's better than what it was, but it's still a little sharp. I'm just going to double click on this edge. And since it's the weaker point in the profile, and I did this edge so I can add more detail, move tool, I'm just going to lift it up slightly, and then just scale it out from the center just ever so slightly. And what that does is, you'll notice, look at how much rounder that looks now. See? And now I'll grab that face in the center again, extrude. Oops, just going to bring that in just a little. You know what, hit C. I'm going to use the offset because it's actually a little more precise or a little easier. And then bring it in just a little so I can just pull it down a little. Gave it a little bit of a lip. Let me do it a little bit less. There we go. See? And now we can see it's a little more rounded out. I'm going to just take this one and I'm just going to extrude it one more time and then just give it a slight push in. There we go, look at that. Much more rounded, nice little definition on the inside. So now let's deal with the legs. So I'm going to create a Polygon Cube and we'll start off with that. Press W so I can see there it is over there. And I'm going to increase its scale. And let's bring it over to make sure that it's the right height. Press F to focus in on it. It's still running a little bit short. And that'll work fine for right now. I'm going to move it over here. And I just want to add a little more shape to it. So in this case, I could use extrudes and just do it that way. But what I'm going to use is a new tool called the Insert Edgeloop. And there's a few different ways of doing this. I'm just going to grab the old-fashioned one. And I'll even add it to my shelf. So if I go to Mesh Tools, there's Insert Edge Loop, and rather than me clicking on it, I'm going to, in my case, hold down Control Shift, which if you're on a Mac, I believe it would be Command Shift, left mouse button, click on that, and you'll notice now it popped up in my menu. So now I can just click on that and then insert an edge where I want it. Just by left mouse clicking and dragging, I'm still holding down my left mouse button. And then I'll add another one. Now it should be noted that it happens on whatever edge is perpendicular. So I went on a vertical edge to make slide across a vertical to say this is where I want to cut horizontally. Just like if I went on a horizontal, I'd say, well, how do I want to cut it vertically? So I've got that. It's still selected. I'm just going to use my scale tool and just scale from the center and give it a nice little taper. Now if I don't want it to bellow out like this, I want it to be a little bit cleaner, I will just go vertex, grab all the vertices, make sure you've got all of them. This little piggy over here went to market, so I'm just going to Control Shift, or it would be Command Shift and drag. So now I have 4 of them. And then I will scale that from their center, taper that in, and that actually looks kind of nice for what it is. But it just makes it a little more interesting than having just a straight vertical box as a leg. It makes it look a little more designed, and we could go into more detail of it, but you do get the idea. So now, press W, which is my move tool, but trying to get it lined up so it perfectly lines up with that can be a pain. So here's what we're going to do. This is the pivot point. This is where if I rotate, it rotates off the pivot. It moves off of the pivot. And basically what happens is, now that I have this, I'm going to hold down, I want to move this pivot point to a corner so I can snap this directly to the corner of this model. So I hold down the D, hold down also the V, and then that little yellow circle or circles in the middle of the manipulator, I click left mouse button, click and drag that right to the corner I want it to be on, and then I release all those buttons. Now I go back and I hold down V, but not X this time, just V to snap to points, and it's in object mode. So if I'm in vertices, it's only going to move the vertice. In object mode, it'll move the entire object. And now I just, holding down V and left mouse button, I snap it. Look at that, it just snaps perfectly. Now I can duplicate that. Let's see, Control D. This one isn't working. Now I could snap it and then just rotate it a perfect angle, but I want to walk through this again. Center pivot, put it back in the middle so you can see the process again. So hold down the letter D, hold down the letter V on top of that, left mouse click and drag, snap it to there, let go of everything, and now just hold down V and snap the whole object right to where it needs to be. Duplicate it, D, V, V, duplicate, let's make sure, oops, undo, D, V, now just V, left mouse button, boom. And the last little touch I'll put on this before we close it up, hold down the space bar, create another cube, or actually I could just go from here, cube, there it is there. So now we have this. I'm going to tighten that up. I'm just going to scale that. There we go, just adding a little details there. And I can kind of scale that in just a little bit right there. And I could even add an extra detail. Like if I grab this face, go into face mode, scale it, offset it a bit. And I extruded it again using G, the letter G, because that's the last tool that I used. And that allows me to actually not have to keep going up there as long as it's the last tool that I used, which in this case was the extrude. go. Then I could duplicate that, put that on the other side. Let's say this is our table. Our table is complete. And if that were the case, I would drag select the whole thing. Got all the pieces, or make sure that I have all the pieces. There. And then once they're all selected, I would hit this icon here. Two planes with a circle around it together, combined. Boom. So now the isolation, if I was isolating, it doesn't work, but it's in a much better place. And I can select it and then move it to where it's supposed to be, the center of the room. And that includes making the table, except for the fact that we can now take our TV set and just drop that right on top, and then we can later on make a little stand for it. Very nice. That concludes this one. We'll move on in the next video.